G'day guys, it's been a couple of years since I talked about the Texas Chainsaw Massacre Part 2 on this show. So today I'm going to follow it up by talking about the film that Italy once upon a time considered to be the Texas Chainsaw Massacre Part 3.
There is no chance for life when he straps on the nervous.
Yes everybody, welcome back to Delightfully Devilish, and today we're going to be talking about one of 3 films made by the director of Troll 2 in the exact same year. We're going to be talking about Night Killer, which was actually released in Italy under the title Non aprite quella porta 3, which translates as Don't Open That Door 3, the Italian moniker for the Texas Chainsaw Massacre films. Oddly enough, this exact same year, the actual Texas Chainsaw Massacre Part 3 came out, Leatherface. I'm just going to say straight off, I hate that film so much. I can't stand today's film, but I would recommend it over Leatherface. According to the behind-the-scenes interview with director Claudio Fragasso, with Night Killer, the man intended to make a very different film to the ones he was accustomed to making with Bruno Mattei. When Claudio Fragasso had finished directing his movie, he turned the cut into the producers, which they were not all that impressed by. They ended up hiring Bruno Mattei to come in and film some way more violent, bloody reshoots. What we ended up getting was a really weird Franken film, which combined the visions of one director and another, who despite working together countless times, had 2 very different visions for this film. Let's try to see if you can understand it any better than I can. Night Killer opens on some kind of over-the-top aerobics class, as in the film just drops us into it without any context or cues to understand what's happening or who it's happening to. And you might remember aerobics being very popular about this time in history. Just look towards Fragrasso's other film from the same year, Troll 2. There was definitely quite a bit of that going on in it too. Of course, it didn't really make any sense in that film either, but that's kind of what Fragrasso is all about. Just not making any fucking sense. I just want to point the camera this way for a second, because, hey Shiva, you want to say hi to the viewers? No? No? Apparently this is actually a show someone's putting on, one which is very bereft of any clear direction, oddly befitting of a Claudio Fragasso film.
This is the 3rd time you've been late, Miss Ross. I know, there was so much traffic and I couldn't find a taxi and...
Hey, Ryder, you forgot to finish my line over here.
Stop! What's the matter with you guys tonight? This show's gonna... Oh, no. This show sucks. And the rate you're going, Charles, with your head down, I don't know. We might as well... It's never go on. It's...
Today, Junior?
Okay. I'm gonna get her and, all right. I'm a little nervous. You have to forgive me. Please,
I don't really know what you're talking about.
We do also get some titties in this scene.
Nice. I mean, crap, man. Look at that. That's like stomach plug.
go rehearse this without me. I'm gonna get Elizabeth.
Eventually she gets murdered too, after a prolonged chase where the filmmakers have made no effort to hide the spotlights used to light up the scene.
You don't see that every day. I mean, that doesn't really even seem possible if you think about it, with body organs and cartilage and bones. And I mean, I'm no doctor, but it was like one clean chunk.
And that's the end of that scene. Didn't tell us who any of these people are or why this was happening. Really didn't tell us anything at all. It was just 2 deaths and some titties. And that is a staple of slasher films, but once in a while a slasher film comes along which has something they call a plot and coherence. That's the other thing.
My goodness, what an idea. Why didn't I think of that?
Furthermore, when the first victim came onto the scene, you can see that it was daylight outside, so I don't really know that I would call the killer a night killer per se. And also, these are the only death scenes we get until 38 minutes into the film. And that's because they have no bearing on the plot at all, they don't impact the narrative in any conceivable way. But because this is such an oddly misguided slog of a movie, these scenes are honestly some of the better ones, but hardly for the right reasons.
Now, back to our story.
A neighbor stops by to give a Christmas present to little Clarissa and walk her to his wife's car while very pornographic music plays.
Sex!
None of these shots convey anything relevant happening, and they all go on for way too long. The only moment worth being the slightest bit attentive to is when you can see a price sticker on the car's windshield. And they're on pretty much all the cars driven by the main characters in this film. You can see that production managed to get very affordable rental rates on these cars for the film. And that's nice, because Troll 2 was made for a budget of only $100,000, so I'm gonna guess that Fragasso doesn't like to spend money on his movies. This little thing just kinda helps him out a bit. Knockoff Linda Hamilton plays the mother, Melanie Beck, a woman being harassed by the trope popularized by When a Stranger Calls.
Listen, I don't have anything to say to you except don't call me anymore.
Cut it! Poi! You've got to emote more!
Then she inexplicably gets her titties out and strokes them while staring in a mirror for a very long time.
This is you. You have a daughter. You have a marriage on the rocks, and nothing but gray skies ahead.
It's plot exposition. It has to go somewhere.
I'm all about freeing the nipple, but I gotta say, you can only stare at a person stroking themselves very uncomfortably on a long camera shot for so long before suddenly the sex appeal just diminishes. And Nutkiller definitely found that point.
Look, eventually you hit a point of diminishing returns on the sexiness.
She manages to keep them out for the next clip before they're suddenly back inside her top a second later and her eye makeup is different. I'm gonna call that a reshoot as well.
Listen, Mrs. Beck. Lock yourself in the house and don't open the door for anyone. I'll call you back in 5 minutes exactly.
Okay.
Now you know exactly what you have to do, right?
Yes. First I have to lock myself in, and you'll call me back in 5 minutes.
I'm really glad we cleared that up. The villain approaches in his knockoff Freddy Krueger mask, and that's not a joke. Co-writer Rosello Drudy said the mask was picked specifically to capitalize on the popularity of the Nightmare on Elm Street series, though it definitely resembles the face of the Toxic Avenger quite a lot as well. And given this film's ridiculous nature and production values, it definitely feels more like a trauma film than a studio slasher.
Now the fun's about to start.
I fucking hope so. There hasn't been a fun moment yet.
Now it's all out in the open. Are you ready to play, Mrs. Beck?
So in the reshoots, the killer is able to punch his rubber blade glove through a person's torso, but in the actual scenes, he has to threaten them with a knife. There must be a second killer in this film. This scene also just ends before these two characters drop in to provide a remarkable amount of plot exposition.
Yes, she did see his face, but the trauma has completely erased it from her memory.
Oh, how convenient.
She doesn't remember anything. She's even forgotten her own name.
I mean, at this point, we probably all have.
Is it true she's even forgotten she's got a daughter?
Yes. We had the child brought in the hopes that perhaps that will have an effect on her.
How are you? Fine.
Fucking liar!
Clarissa is sent to stay with the neighbors, and Melanie is released from custody. And for someone who has no memory of anything apparently, no professionals have any concern about letting her drive a rental car. And I know motor functions come from a different part of the brain, but how the hell can you trust any doctor that lets a woman who has just gone through all of that just freely drive herself off? She can't remember her own name. She probably can't remember where she lives. Where are they letting her drive to? Why are they not escorting her? Why is no one concerned about keeping her safe?
That is a good question. And Scotty?
Inexplicably, a rando starts harassing her.
Hey, sweetheart! Gonna wet your whistle?
He follows her to a hotel bathroom only to get held at gunpoint.
Call an ambulance! But not for me!
What's with the gun? Anybody can make a mistake.
And at what point did it click that stalking this girl might be a mistake? Tell me, was it at any point before she had the gun pointed at you, or was that the line? There is remarkably little plot building going on in this film. A woman is forcing a stranger to strip and throw clothes in the toilet just because. We don't really know jack squat about either of these people, nor do we have a reason as to why we should care.
What about my clothes?
Just reach in and fish them out.
There?
Shouldn't be anything new for an asshole like you. You're full of shit yourself.
Will you watch your ruddy language? My ears are not a toilet.
Hey, bud, what happened to your clothes?
I got molested in the little boy's room.
Look at him. He runs like a Welshman. Doesn't he? Doesn't he run like a Welshman?
He then tracks her down to the beach where she's preparing to commit suicide.
Suicide is badass. No.
Again, doctors, why did you let a woman who has no memory of anything apparently drive off unsupervised in a suicidal state with the necessary items to kill herself?
Too many questions.
He pulls over in front of a Pepsi machine and then proceeds to force her head into the ocean so that she can puke it all up. I like to think of this scene as a metaphor. See, in this scene, Tara Buckman is playing the role of 4 billionaires, and the guy is playing the role of the Ocean Gate CEO who led them all to a watery grave. This shot goes on for an uncomfortably long time, and the temperature of the water was apparently negative 10 degrees in Virginia at the time, according to the director. Yet to her credit, Tara Buchman insisted on doing this scene twice to get the right take. I'll give her respect for that. She is really committed to this role, even though it may kind of be the nadir of her career. Now we cut to a reshoot.
I wasn't born yesterday. If a stranger asks for something, there's a rat hidden somewhere. That's what my mama always used to say.
Sweet, beautiful, drunk talk.
Seeing as I could never stand the sight of the old lady, I'll come out with you.
You're gonna die just to spite your mother. Okay, reshoot, do what you gotta. She gets led to a seedy studio where she opens the door on a spotlight pointed directly at the camera. Seriously, I'm trying to branch into working in lighting right now. I'd like to be a gaffer one day, and seeing this kind of shit, this really pisses me off. You can't have this kind of disrespect for lighting and call yourself any kind of a serious filmmaker. See, this is exactly why I can't watch Scary Movie 2 anymore. And to make things worse, the villain literally walks in front of the light and gives his secret identity away. I don't need to say spoiler alert. The film literally gives this to you. Not in the actual story, by the way, in the reshoot. The producers actually said, let's shoot some additional scenes, and didn't realize one of the scenes they shot completely gave away the entire mystery in the film. At some point, you should be able to figure out who this guy is without actually watching this scene, and you might be so bored watching the movie that you'll look away for a second and miss it, because that actually did happen to me the first time I watched it, but even then I managed to still figure out who the killer actually was. A prolonged, boring exchange ends with him drowning her. And let's appreciate the actress's sincerity here.
No!
She's about as committed as this film deserves. Neighbor Man begins to make out with the corpse as another spotlight is left in frame with aggressive obviousness.
I got a question about you, mortician. You bang the dead bodies?
Then we cut back to the non-reshoots, having to pretend like this guy who has now kidnapped Melanie Beck is meant to possibly be the masked murderer.
Fried chicken and french fries.
Bump the video.
Valium. Surrender.
Dialogue?
A gun.
Wow, a gun!
Barbiturates. Everything you always needed to kill yourself with, but were afraid to ask for.
He is so eccentric.
Just what the hell do you want from me?
I already told you, I just want to be friends.
This is definitely a strong contender for the most awkward shot in this film. And that's saying something because there are so many long, awkward, uncomfortable shots in Night Killer. There's Tara Buchman with her titties out earlier. There's Tara Buchman getting drowned in negative 10-degree water. But then there is this. It's a battle of wits between two actors trying to overact each other into the grave and see who is going to come out alive. The highlights of this long take include Melanie threatening to kill herself, then him threatening to shoot her.
You're gonna shoot me if I shoot myself? That doesn't make any sense!
This 6-minute long take comes to a close with him exiting and locking her in the room.
6 minutes, don't get on.
And the stupendous logic behind the psychological mind games is revealed with a ridiculous twist eventually, but the callous display of misogyny in Night Killer is just downright sickening, honestly. The filmmakers so often confuse the shocking nature of sexual violence for actual storytelling, so they shove it in your face every fucking step of the way, no matter how uncomfortable or sick or twisted it might be. And it's surreal how ridiculous it is. If they thought this was okay, they really cannot know better. And they should know better. Every person should know better. I'm going to assume most people watching this film know better, but these filmmakers obviously don't. And it was at this point in the movie that I stopped and said to myself, why am I not just watching Troll 2 right now? I would much rather that. Say what you want about all the obvious faults in that film's production values, acting, inconsistent mythology and everything, but it had a story. it had a way more clear vision. Sure, it may have been a twist on a vampire narrative that was designed to paint vegetarians as bad people for whatever reason, but it at least made a lot more sense than this. Troll 2 is definitely, unironically, the superior film. And that is a sentence that you may have never heard anyone say ever, or will ever hear them say ever again. But I just said it now, and I mean it.
This is real talk.
The scenery changes to an aquarium, which is shutting up. Sheba. Hey, Sheba, can you go on your bed? Can you go on your bed? The scenery changes to an aquarium, which is shutting up for the day. After we see the lingerie this employee is wearing underneath her uniform, then we get another reshoot death scene. Now, apparently the aquarium was closing when this murder happened, but I did a little bit of research. Now, the big aquarium in Virginia closes at 6 p.m. on any average day. And I'm going to say that 6 p.m. is probably a time where light is still going to be out. I know it's winter because Christmas is happening in this film at this time, but it's also autumn at one point, so I don't know for certain. Either way, my money is placed on the bet that once again, this murder happened during the daytime, not the night. Killer.
The maniac cut her into pieces and then fed her to the fish.
And remarkably, we never get to actually see the body that's in the body bag there, which, based on the outline, would appear to be pretty well intact.
So that was a fucking lie.
All of the victims were raped before they were tortured, mutilated, and killed.
You know what? Let's just watch some flashbacks.
I'm a fool to do your dirty work. Go, yeah. I don't want to do your dirty work no more.
Yeah, that was a tangled web of lies, sweetie.
And I want to make a note of saying that this is the point in the film where I actually just completely tuned out. I had spent so much time trying to understand what the hell was happening here, but you can only do so many mental gymnastics before you are completely out of breath. And that's exactly what happened. The film just got reduced to background noise, and I got distracted by, I can't remember what I was doing, but whatever the fuck else I was doing was obviously more entertaining than this. I unfortunately had to go back and watch Night Killer 2 more times for this review, so yeah, I had to pay attention.
Talking about?
There's somebody at the door. There's somebody at the door. There's somebody at the door.
What was that noise?
What are you talking about? You come in here ranting about gunshots and service revolvers. I've had enough. Get out.
Listen, I don't want any funny business, or I call the police. Is that clear?
Don't worry. Won't be any more disturbances.
Wow, $1. God, those bribery prices are nearly as good as those car rental rates. Her breast also pops out once again.
Put your boobs away fast.
Eventually, the police track her to the hotel room where this dude easily knocks out the singular cop they sent over. Oh yeah, and in case you forgot, there's also still that subplot about Beck's daughter.
That crazy bastard who cut my face up, he's out there roaming around somewhere. Now he's got our friend Melanie and he's holding her hostage.
I gotta call bullshit on that.
I'm the only one who's seen his face. I'm the only one who can possibly identify him.
So this guy just very casually mentions that he has information. Hey, Shiva. Shiva! That's a good girl. It's a very good girl. Okay. Now you relax. I gotta go talk to the camera.
Take two.
And this guy just very casually drops a mention of the fact that he is in possession of vital information which could lead the police to discovering the killer, and nobody else seems bothered by that. I mean, I know he's the killer because that reshoot accidentally told me, but why is no one else questioning this guy's motives?
Annie, take it from me. The police are groping in the dark.
What the fuck is that supposed to mean?
What about our daughter?
Our daughter? She's not our daughter. She's Melanie Beck's daughter, remember?
You know what I think? You want to know what I think?
No. No, 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 no.
I think the maniac should slit her throat from ear to ear. She's not worthy of our daughter, Clarissa.
She really can't shut her mouth, can she?
She's a tramp. She's been laid by everything in a 50-mile radius.
Except that she's been married and raising a daughter this whole time while you've been making up these horrific slut-shaming stories about her, you fucking bitch.
You're not my mommy.
Don't look at me, shithead! After running from the dude who has been abusing her for the past however long, she runs right into the hands of the guy that sexually assaulted her. The twist is then revealed, but even if you didn't see his face earlier, it's really not hard to figure out. There's only 2 male characters in this film that could have any real motive to mistreat Melanie Beck. It obviously isn't going to be the guy the film wants us to think it is, because then the pseudo-mystery the film thinks it is building wouldn't have any point. But I hate to tell you that even with this twist in there, it still doesn't have a fucking point.
My wife's right. She's right when she says you attract men like a bitch in heat.
Oh, will you just stop using the letter S? It is very obvious the sound designers on this film are not equipped to deal with the letter S.
Thanks to you, I'm going to be scarred for the rest of my life.
Thanks to her, in a flashback we see that after tying Beck up, the killer gives her a knife, unties her, and expects her to commit suicide.
But that's not the way it happened.
Well, who didn't see that coming?
That was stupid of me.
Really?
At gunpoint, Beck uses her feminine charms to woo the killer before she stabs him in the dick.
You know the door was open!
He's dead.
Then the police reveal the secret plan that's been hidden from the audience the whole time.
She had to relive the experience in order to overcome it.
Well, wasn't that a rather dangerous approach?
No. Well, yes.
The non-killer pervert was her husband all along. He was trying to recreate the most difficult experience of her life because discount Sam Loomis theorized that it might bring her memory back. And ignoring the fact that since he wasn't there, he would not be able to recreate the scenario exactly as it was on the night of the attack, and ignoring the fact that this is a really, really fucking stupid idea to mistreat someone who has just undergone such horrific sexual violence, this plot twist reveals that they've just been gaslighting the audience the entire time.
Well, that sucks.
But wasn't it Sergeant Beck that was expelled from the force, Detective Clark?
Yeah, he was, but I can guarantee you that after this, he'll not only get his job back, he'll probably get a promotion out of this.
Well, yeah, that'd be nice, except for the fact that everything he did was horrible. He committed numerous crimes, including assaulting a police officer, although the police officer was African American, and I'm sure they would welcome that back on the force. After all these horrible things happened, everyone is suddenly one big happy family again.
Mommy, Daddy, can I get in my room?
Sure, honey.
That's not your room.
Forgive you? Of course. You did everything you did out of love.
Yeah, so after mistreating her for so long in an effort to apparently bring her memory back, she's just like, yeah, I feel okay and comfortable and safe in your arms now. And he's been accepted back onto the force. This cop is definitely part of the 40%.
It was hell not being able to talk to you rationally, not being able to touch you.
You touched her many times, all in completely inappropriate ways. For some reason that makes as much sense as anything else in this film, Clarissa ignores the promise to wait until Christmas and decides to open her present early.
Do you recognize me, Mrs. Beck?
Done.
Is Night Killer a good movie? I'm going to overlook the plot holes, the inconsistencies between the visions of two directors, and the absolute insanity that comes from the mind of Claudio Fragrasso. Because if I don't, I'm going to be driven insane trying to rationalize all the weird decisions made for this movie for the remainder of this video, so I'm just going to approach this movie from two different angles: entertainment value and technical perspective. Entertainment-wise, Night Killer is the kind of movie so rife with problems in every conceivable area that if you watch it in the presence of the right people and the right substances, sarcastic commentary will enlighten the experience. Movies like this have their worst qualities unforgivably amplified when watched without humorous commentary, and when it's a movie as shamelessly misogynistic as Night Killer, it doesn't make for a pleasant viewing. Night Killer suffers from a complete identity crisis. It wants to be so many things. The director thinks it's a brilliant piece of giallo cinema, whilst the studio thinks it's a slasher film. It plagiarizes from multiple movies, ranging from A Nightmare on Elm Street to When a Stranger Calls, whilst it's also been compared to films such as Night Porter and Bad Dreams, which I admittedly haven't seen. It takes pieces from a lot of films but never commits to building a story strong strong enough to actually stand on its own 2 feet, so it just so often reminds you of other films because you don't want to be watching this one. And the shortcomings serve to make the characters so laughable that there is no caring for them. You should feel some sympathy for Melanie Beck for being a consistent victim of such abuse, but with such convoluted reasoning to go with the aggressive sexual violence in the film, you will likely just confuse yourself into a state of unhappy boredom. Also, considering that the only murders in this film happen in reshoots and all those murders happen during the day, this is not a film about a night killer. This is a film that should be titled Day Rapist if it wants to be sincere about its name. But if it did that, it probably wouldn't be marketed in Italy as the third Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
I can think of at least 2 things wrong with that title.
From a technical perspective, Night Killer isn't much more impressive. There's the odd moment of imagery, and occasionally the music is atmospheric, but most of the time the camera is lingering on the same uninspired shot for a ridiculously long period of time, and the music is just frequently intrusive, or just wrong for the moment. Night Killer is so downright confusing and complicated, yet also atmospheric at the same time, which says that Claudia Fragasso, whilst artistically insane, was not without merit as a filmmaker. This entire movie is so complex that it feels like some kind of drug trip. I've never done heroin myself, but they say that's like chasing the dragon. You're always chasing the dragon and never catching it. And that's kind of what Night Killer feels like. You're always chasing after some kind of logic or reason or something that can help you understand this movie when you're watching it. But amid all the weird shots, plot twists, horrible dialogue, campy acting and everything, you're just never gonna find it. And I have tried to catch the dragon for too damn long, and I just couldn't. That was my experience watching this movie. But of course I'm talking about this film because it meets the criteria of being the good, the bad, and the ugly all at once. That's what Delightfully Devilish is all about. And whilst I didn't exactly enjoy this film, it was recommended to me by someone who did. So we're gonna open up the conversation. Alright, we're here to talk Night Slasher. Your favorite movie apparently.
You mean Night Killer?
Night Killer. Jesus.
You said Night Slasher.
See, okay, well this is how much respect I have for the film.
So back in like the 1970s, Claudia Fragasso met this Italian guy named Bruno Mattei.
Yeah, they worked together on every film. They kind of completed each other's works a lot of the time.
From such classics as Double Target, Robo War, Born to Fight, which is if Crocodile Dundee was an action movie. But like all those movies have the same shot of a hut being blown up.
You know, I really want to see a remake of Crocodile Dundee starring Bob Catter. Goes to North Queensland to take on the crocodiles that hunt them every 3 months. Imagine that.
But I ain't spending any time on it.
Back in 1987, Claudia Fragasso and Bruno Mattei had a falling out and they started just making movies separately. So Claudia Fragasso made Beyond Darkness, which in Italy was...
La Casa 5, was it?
Which also means Evil Dead 5.
Well, La Casa means the house. Because yes, they released the Evil Dead films as the house. So it looks like this was a big thing in the Italian market. Unofficial Italian sequels. So there is actually 2 films that are titled Troll 3. One of them was about nuclear waste bringing trees to life and murdering people. It was released as Troll 3. It was released as Contamination Point 7. And then there was another film called Troll 3, The Sword of Power, which was one of the Ator the Invincible films. They were Italian mockbusters of the Conan the Barbarian films featuring Miles O'Keefe. They carried one of the costumes from Troll 2, and they had a character who was a troll or a goblin, I can't remember. Then they marketed the film as Troll 3, The Sword of Power, whilst also marketing it as one of the Ator the Invincible films. That is a genre of films in itself. It's unofficial Italian B-movie sequels / knockoffs. The Italian market just kept releasing popular American horror movies with different new titles, and then they would make sequel after sequel after sequel and still try to tie them in.
Of course, he filmed this movie around the same time as his most popular film,
Troll 2. Came out the exact same year, as did another film. He had 3 films come out the same year.
All same level of quality.
Yep, all of them often discussed in very bad movie circles.
Although for some reason Troll 2 was the one that got the most cult for.
Troll 2 was definitely the peak of Claudio Fragrasso's career, or Draco Floyd, as he was going under at the time. Claudio Fragrasso's vision made no fucking sense, so you really couldn't butcher that with reshoots. It probably makes the film a little bit better, because it gives more of the genre thrills and leans away from whatever fucking visceral, twisted vision Claudio Fragrasso had. I don't think he's even figured it out, because we watched the behind-the-scenes interview. He thought of himself as an underappreciated auteur. You could argue that Fragrasso is an auteur, in the same way you could argue Tommy Wiseau is an auteur or Neil Breen.
Or James Nugent.
Yeah, you could call bad filmmakers auteurs if they've got a style to them, because Nugent's films are consistently bad in a consistent stylistic manner, the same way Neil Breen's are, the same way Fragrasso's are.
But something is different about Claudio Fragasso, because when he makes his movies, he generally thinks he's making great movies, but then they always turn out so bad it's good. But this is before the time of the internet where they could just make fun of stuff and he would realise that he's making bad movies and do it on purpose.
But do you think that you at the worst movie? I did a very good movie. If the others say worst movie, it's them Them problem, not my problem. My problem is to shoot a lot of movie. I want to shoot a lot of movie. I can't stop.
Fragrasso talked about how he wanted to light the film in such a way that had a European colour scheme. I think very giallo, sort of flat colours in scenes, highlighted colours in others. Whereas when Matei shot his stuff, the camera literally focuses on the lights multiple times. Does Night Killer meet the criteria of being a Christmas movie? It's set at Christmas, there's Christmas imagery in there, there's a plot twist involving a Christmas present. There's this whole family drama.
I would agree, but the opening scene takes place in autumn for some reason.
It doesn't really have the jovial kind of Christmas spirit or any of the themes that usually tie into Christmas movies. I think when the key theme in the movie is just persistent misogyny, you can't really call that a Christmas movie. What do you love about Night Killer?
I just love how off it is. It doesn't feel like humans made it. It felt like aliens just watched Texas Chainsaw Massacre. It was like, we could do this. And then like they didn't know like how to talk to humans properly. And like they wrote the script and humans couldn't understand it. And then they're like, okay, we'll do it. That's how it feels.
That would make complete sense because when they made Troll 2, Claudio Fragrasso had everything written in Italian and all his crew were Italian and the actors were asked to deliver the lines of dialogue in English ad verbatim, and it is very obviously not written by someone who has made an effort to make believable English language dialogue.
I'm a good director. I can direct with all the language.
That's not strictly true, is it, Kerry?
I can easily see language barriers having been an issue in this production, especially if aliens actually wrote it. You are right in that this film constantly feels off, and it feels off in such a way that really, there is no film like this. Having seen this and Troll 2, Claudio Fragrasso does have a style to him. His movies are memorable, they're so weird, they're so off-kilter. From time to time his movies get boring, but most of the time they're weird in such a way that it's hard to look away. I will say, I think Night Killer loses its momentum kind of halfway through.
I think towards the ending.
Absolutely towards the ending, because they've kind of got to wrap everything up. They haven't been building towards anything, so how do you wrap up something you haven't even started?
The first 20 minutes of this movie, so much happens. First it's about like dances, then it goes to this woman, then it goes to this bar guy, then it goes to this creepy guy following her, then it goes to the beach scene.
What is it that works about this film, and what doesn't? Now there's so much that doesn't work about this movie, but what do we think unironically actually does work in this movie's favour?
I'm waiting.
Do we have anything?
Well, there's an aquarium scene. That's not done in slasher movies.
The aquarium was nice. Yeah. It was a nice location. Is that it?
I think so.
I think so.
Now onto the negatives.
The things that didn't work. Everything!
Man, I just feel so bad for the Italian Texas Chainsaw Massacre fans when they have to see this.
So at this point, the first two Texas Chainsaw Massacres had come out, and imagine you've seen those first two. They're both Tobe Hooper films, and those are the only two in the series that I like. 2 is flawed in so many ways, it has a lot of great parts, but you've seen those first 2 movies, and then you go to the theatre to see they've got a third one. Oh boy. Oh, and then you get this.
Do you know the story of Little Red Riding Hood?
What the hell is that?
Subjectively, it is an entertaining movie. It is flawed, and it obviously has such appeal that it's been given a 4K restoration, so there's a market for it.
And thanks to Chris Stuckman, it's even more popular now.
He was the reason I first heard about the movie.
I'm surprised there aren't more reviews for Night Killer, because it's great. It's really funny. It's a great drinking movie.
You watch this movie and you're just like, what are these decisions for a slasher film? Who's this guy? Like, why is this in an aquarium? Why is it a motel now? Like, why are they at a beach house together?
Nothing ever makes sense in this movie. In the behind-the-scenes interview, you can see that Claudio Fragrasso apparently has some vision for it. I don't think he even knows what it is. I think he tells himself he has a vision for it, and he's probably convinced himself that he does have a vision, but I think he's blind.
And he's the same guy who in the Troll 2 documentary said fuck you to the audience.
Yes, called his actors dogs, accused them of lying about behind-the-scenes production.
I direct these dogs of actors, these actors' dogs. We saw the good actor, the bad actor, and so we decided to cut to you.
This was not a half-assed movie. This was a movie that someone genuinely did put a lot of effort into.
It's not half-assed, they just put a lot of arse into it.
Yes. It was half-assed over-directing as opposed to half-assed under-directing.
But I'm using my whole head.
Favourite line in the movie? I think we both have that favourite line.
I got molested.
In the little boy's room. He was an outwardly queer actor. And that actually caused friction on the set, because the lead actress didn't think she could have good enough chemistry with him because he was gay. She didn't trust the way that he was going to kiss her. She didn't think it was genuine. I don't know if there was any homophobia there. They never really got into it, but give her the benefit of the doubt on this one. He is so campy in this film. and it definitely works to the film's benefit.
Easily top 5 campy performances.
The two leading actors, I've got to give them both credit. So Tara Buckman, she plays an idea of the damsel in distress stereotype so well because she's constantly being victimized. She very frequently has her breasts out, and she is always screaming maniac, like when she's like, "Stop calling me!" And whenever she screams, she's like, "Ah!" The only other thing I recognized her from was the mother who got murdered at the start of Silent Night, Deadly Night after Santa popped her top off and then slit her throat.
I guarantee you, Claudio Fragasso saw that.
I guarantee. Will you stop saying that?
Then you've got Peter who's
lines.
just always like, over-the-top macho guy. I got molested in the little boys' room.
My pants.
What about my pants?
Kentucky
Fried chicken and French fries. He went over the top for this film. He leant into the camp appeal.
I think he knew what film he was getting made, and he just did the worst performance he could, and it paid off.
Honestly, good for him. Good for him. He is an endearing quality in this film. He gives it a sense of life. I think most people in this film gave it their all. Even the cop and Dr. Willow, they were good actors.
They were the best actors in the movie.
They weren't delivering good dialogue, but they did a solid job of it. In so many subjective ways, this film gets certain things right. The acting is good, but in a very campy way. There's a lot of moments of memorable imagery. The music score, which is never right. Sometimes it's porn music. Sometimes it's
90s theme song music.
Yeah, sometimes it seems like someone tried to merge the theme song of Twin Peaks with a work of Buck and just ended up with whatever the fuck it was. Nothing about this film works. And that's what makes it work. So Night Killer, ultimately, is just a testament to irony. When you think about it, this movie is like a skinny chef. What would you give this film out of 10?
A 3?
I was thinking I would give this movie a 3 out of 10.
On an unironic standpoint, though, this movie is a 10 out of 10.
If you're looking for a one-of-a-kind vision, a very strange one-of-a-kind vision that doesn't make sense and realistically probably just shouldn't exist in the first place, then yes, this is a hell of a movie to watch. For me, this is a straight-up 3 out of 10 because nothing about this film works, and that's what makes it work. So I can appreciate it on an ironic level from a straightforward perspective of someone who has, let's say I've got a vague idea about filmmaking, and that's me being humble there. This movie does not have a vague idea on how to make movies. Sorry, Claudia Fragrasso, that's a 3 out of 10, mate. Call me a dog if you want. I don't give a fuck.
If you love Troll 2, you should definitely watch his other movies. I recommend Double Target, the Terminator Rambo knockoff movie.
Certain times I've walked out of a cinema and said, I never want to watch anything that director has ever made again. That was what happened when I watched The Great Gatsby. And then as I went on to learn from watching the rest of Baz Luhrmann stuff, I made the right call. Minus Strictly Ballroom and Romeo and Juliet, both of which I appreciated. After seeing this and Troll 2, I am curious to see more of Claudio Fragrasso, because he may be one of the great bad filmmakers of our time.
Seguo molto la critica e la critica non segue molto me. Io non faccio film per essere elogiato dalla critica. Considerato il film peggiore è un complimento quasi come il film migliore. Cioè vuol dire che comunque hai colpito.